Before I get into this video, I want to say that I'm sorry for not uploading for 4 months. I also want to say that I was sick while recording this, so if I sound off, that's why. So yeah, sorry about that. Anyways, I doubt that I'd have to explain what cancel culture is. It's a plague that has affected every corner of the internet for the past few years, and it's becoming more and more common every day. Sometimes it's for minor problems, like someone making a slightly offensive comment, or some shit they said years ago that they don't stand by today, and sometimes it can be super serious, like the case of Slazo, where he was being falsely accused of sexual assault, and most people ran with the story without getting his side. But whatever your opinion is aside, unless you believe that cancel culture doesn't exist, you can't deny its impact. So for this video, I'm going to be going over different cases of cancel culture throughout the years and the impact that it's had on the internet as a whole. But before we get further into this video, I want to ask that you would not hate or harass anyone mentioned in this video. I know this is a basic disclaimer and might seem unnecessary, but some people genuinely have to be told how to act decently on the internet for some reason. So thanks, and now to the video. I know stan culture has been talked about to death by many commentary channels, including myself, but like it or not, this is a major part of cancel culture. Now, stans themselves are mostly harmless. I do find it a bit questionable to base your entire social media on MCYT creators, K-pop stars, or anything like that, but it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. What I take issue with, however, is the culture surrounding it, which leads to a lot of issues. About 99% of stans are teenagers who are impressionable and look up to their favorite creators as role models of sorts. And whenever their image of their perfect role model is tainted slightly, whether it was something they said in the past, something they found offensive, or any sort of thing, it causes them to lash out. They'll start making tweets airing out their frustration under the guise of educating the creators of ignorance of an issue. It's absolutely fine to get offended by things. Everyone gets offended from time to time, even if you claim to have the thickest skin on earth. But when you are making tweet after tweet trying to cancel someone over something very minor that they did, that is a problem. And it's also a problem when content creators enable this type of behavior. And this isn't any more apparent than with Dream. Now, you might be confused by my statement there and think that Dream really had no part in causing this toxic shit. And you would be right. Dream never really directly encouraged this behavior, but I'd argue that he indirectly enabled it. For a while, whenever any one of his stans, or just anyone on Twitter in general, would say something remotely negative about him, he would apologize. And I believe that this was intentional. The first time that Dream was ever called out for something minor on Twitter, he justifiably defended himself on his private account, which caused some backlash from his fans. He then apologized fully the next day, basically taking back anything he said the day before.
I woke up and the first thing I see is people messaging me telling me to kill myself, and I was referencing, and I think that both Zaptie and George, when I asked them, they thought the same exact thing. SpongeBob, when SpongeBob goes victory screech, and other times did other stuff like that. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend anybody, and had I not woken up to people calling me a racist and that I don't deserve support and all stuff like that, I probably would have just replied to that original tweet and said, hey, I'm sorry for, offending you.
And every single time someone has called him out for something minor and Dream responded, it's always him immediately apologizing. He didn't want any backlash from his fans. This was clear after he backed down and took back what he said the first time after this shit happened. But him doing this also paints a sympathetic portrait of him that commentary YouTubers would run within videos. It's something that both paints him in a good light or as a victim of cancel culture, and it also makes his fans happy. But what Dream doesn't realize is that by doing this, he sets a bad precedent. By apologizing for every minor thing that Twitter stans would call him out for, he validates them, and unintentionally sets the standards very high for his fans, and maybe even the people around them. It's fine to be offended by something. Everyone has different morals and opinions, and we should accept that. But also, setting the standards this high for a content creator is not healthy. It makes it so that they have to walk on eggshells basically in order to please every one of their fans. That's basically all I have to say here, and before anyone asks, yes, this section was just an excuse to shit on Dream. Moving on. If you've been keeping up with the commentary community, you might have seen that T channels have become a target in the past few months, with many commentary channels making videos on them, and for good reason. Besides the fact that these channels make really shitty content, a lot of them make videos filled with misinformation and outlandish claims about their targets, with the most notable examples being the coverage of the Gabby Hanna and Eugenia Cooney situations, and I'm going to be focusing on the latter. To give some context, for anyone somehow unaware, Eugenia Cooney is a YouTuber that has an eating disorder. She's unhealthy and views herself as being overweight whenever it's the exact opposite. Her content doesn't center around her eating disorder, however. Instead, her channel is generally focused on fashion and makeup videos with some side stuff every now and then. Her channel is ultimately harmless. But in the past year or so, YouTubers have been advocating for Eugenia Cooney to be deplatformed from YouTube, with there even being a petition to get her removed from YouTube, which had received over 50,000 signatures before it was closed. The main goal they're apparently going for is trying to get her to go to rehab or some sort of mental health facility, but this is probably the worst way to go towards that goal. Even if you consider Eugenia only temporarily losing her platforms while she possibly gets help, her eating disorder is not going to go away. It's a constant struggle that she'll most likely have to deal with her entire life. It's not going to go away if she leaves and gets help for a few months. And I'd argue that her being deplatformed would do much more harm than good. For starters, YouTube is most likely one of her main sources of income at the moment. Having that stripped away from her could damage her mental health and her livelihood in general. It could also make her more insecure about her body and how she looks. Let's also keep in mind that Eugenia hasn't broken any community guidelines. She's not pro-Anna or promoting eating disorders. She's merely just existing on the platform. Yet this causes an uproar in the internet for some reason, which is how T channels like iNabber came into the picture. If you remember iNabber, it's most likely for the E-Boy situation, where he was fucked out of a group channel by his friends. This made most of the commentary community sympathize with him and go after iMalex and his friends, with iNabber's behavior being mostly ignored. When the Eugenia situation was getting bigger, iNabber made some videos on the topic that were horrible to say the least. To summarize the videos, his main point was that Eugenia was pro-Anna and her content was harmful to herself and others. But he also says that he doesn't want Eugenia to be deplatformed.
In today's video, I do want to cover the issue of me believing that Eugenia's channel is genuinely dangerous for Eugenia's fans and for Eugenia and just a lot of people out there. But I also think that it is very hard to dismiss that Eugenia's channel isn't pro-Anna. I don't believe that Eugenia should be outright removed from YouTube, but I do think that she needs to fully acknowledge that these thumbnails and her titles and her YouTube channel in general can cause dangers,
which is difficult to believe. Any content encouraging or promoting eating disorders is against the YouTube guidelines. It's pointless to try and claim that you're trying to help her and don't want her taken down when you're claiming that her content is supposedly pro-Anna. It's like saying that you don't want someone arrested, but you then point out all the crimes they've committed. It makes no sense. And it makes even less sense when iNabber has a hard time explaining exactly why Eugenia's content is harmful. His most substantial point came from someone on Twitter he found, who apparently had their ED triggered by Eugenia's content. And look, I can sympathize with someone dealing with ED. Watching someone like Eugenia could trigger that, but watching literally anyone with an eating disorder could do that. The don't like, don't watch argument is something that is so overplayed and is usually used to dodge criticism, but it's definitely something that is applicable here. Eugenia's content has nothing to do with her eating disorder, as we have established already. It's not her fault that someone's ED is being triggered. She's just existing. iNabber and other channels like his are contributing to a problem. No matter how much they claim to care about her, their coverage of Eugenia Cooney puts a stigma on people with eating disorders in general. Shit like this can make anyone with an eating disorder scared or skeptical to start a YouTube channel, as channels like these could shit on them for merely existing. The Eugenia Cooney situation is blown out of proportion. She obviously needs help and nobody is denying that, but the only person that could help her is herself, and not people on the internet who think they know what they're talking about. Before I start off this section, I'd recommend watching both of Nicholas Diorio's Zaptie videos. They're really good and go way more in depth about the situation than I will here. Anyways, the situation was a confusing mess that occurred back in early 2017. Zaptie, an up-and-coming commentary YouTuber, was canceled for a mix of allegations, which were made public on his own podcast by his friends, where a lot of misinformation was spread. These allegations later made it to Twitter, with the main two accusations being that he was a sociopath and a pedophile, with him allegedly receiving nudes from underage girls. The main people involved in spreading these accusations were notably Elvis the Alien, Deodar Anthony, Bionic Pig, and I'm Alex, who completely distanced themselves from Zaptie after damaging his reputation. The most damning allegation that came out against Zaptie was that he was allegedly sexting a 16-year-old at the age of 20. Deodar Anthony and I'm Alex especially had a hand in this case, as they were also pushing the narrative that Zaptie sent and received nudes from the girl that he was talking to. The situation would be criticized, most notably by Tommy C and VWQ, now known as Danarchy, but most people were willing to accept that Zaptie was a sociopath and pedophile. And this was a problem, as the situation was much more nuanced than what it was made out to be back in 2017. Zaptie made some mistakes and may not have been exactly a good person at the time, but he did not deserve to have his platform taken away from him. Or at the very least, people should have criticized him for what he actually did instead of rumors and unconfirmed allegations. This situation can also be compared to the Callmecarson situation. Carson's friends came out with allegations that he was sexting minors, which turned out just to be Carson sexting a 17-year-old when he was 19, which isn't a big deal. You can make a point about the power dynamic there, as Carson had over 1 million subs when this happened, and he was talking to a fan. It wasn't grooming or pedophilia like people were claiming though. But what makes the Carson situation the most similar to the Zaptie situation, in my opinion, is how Carson's friends handled his allegations. His friends went on Drama Alert for an interview to talk about the allegations, all while not knowing the girl's age. After the girl made a public statement on Twitter, Carson's friends made statements against him. Jay Schlatt made a confusing video that added more questions than answers. Slimesickle claimed that he called the FBI on Carson, despite still interacting with him after he was told about Carson supposedly sexting minors. And Noah Hugbox's statements on the situation have been confusing in general. And overall, the situation has not been handled well at all. It's a perfect parallel to what happened with Zaptie. His friends made a podcast filled with unconfirmed allegations against him and decided to cut ties after the quote-unquote hard evidence came out. Zaptie came out with a statement giving a lot more clarity to the situation and the things being said about him, and his friends doubled down. Both of these situations were handled terribly and eclipsed his reputation to the people accused, which is sad to see. If you were going to cancel someone, the things they did should either be morally fucked, illegal, or enough to consider them a danger to the platform. And neither of these cases were exactly that. You could argue that both of them did shitty things, sure, but it's not enough to be deplatformed. Now, if I was making this video a year ago, I would talk about how Zaptie would never come back and how the commentary community from 2017 basically ruined his career. But this situation does have a good ending to it. In December of 2020, Zaptie was interviewed by Nicholas Diorio, where he talked about the allegations, the misinformation behind it, and how the situation affected him. He also mentioned in this interview that he sometimes thought about coming back, but never went through with this. At the time of this interview, people were just surprised that he was talking to Nick, as it seemed like he left the internet for lack of a better term, and they didn't expect him to come back with new videos. But he eventually did. On September 15th, 2021, he posted a teaser trailer for a new video he was working on, and the reaction to it was overwhelmingly positive, to the point where his new channel, where he was going by the name Big B, gained over 1,000 subscribers before the video even came out. And when the video did eventually release, he was met with even more support. I'm glad that he was able to come back to the internet and make videos again with little to no backlash. He was canceled for flimsy at best allegations that had no confirmation or verifiable proof, as well as being fucked over by his friends and the commentary community in general. They threw him under the bus essentially, and I'm glad that he's been able to come back from that. Obviously, not all the damage can be undone from back then. He was a rising commentary channel that would most likely be above 1 million subscribers today had the situation not happened. But it's good that he's been able to come back with a fresh start. Moving on. If you've watched my channel at all, you would know that the Callmecarson situation is something that has bothered me for a while. Hell, my most popular video is on the situation, my thoughts on it, and criticisms for everyone involved. But to sum it up in one sentence, it is a poorly handled situation that perfectly describes modern cancel culture. For those who aren't familiar with what happened, Carson was exposed in early January for sexting minors. This information was first brought to Drama Alert, where Travis and Noah Hugbox, both former friends of Carson, explained that in early 2020, they were told by him that he was sexting minors. The Drama Alert interview fails to include many details, including the ages of Carson and the victim at the time, how many people he did this with, if Carson was continuing his line of behavior, and other details that could have been important. A few hours after the initial Drama Alert episode, though, the victim of Carson came out with her experience where it was revealed that she was 17 and Carson was 19 during their interactions. Carson's friends then released statements against him and cut ties, but their stories aren't exactly consistent. Jay Schlatt made a video statement that caused me to have several more questions than answers. For one, Schlatt stated that he cut contact with Carson after he was given reason to believe that Carson was continuing his behavior. But when Travis and Noah went to Drama Alert, they didn't know if Carson was continuing this behavior. In fact, they didn't even know the girl's age.
Did he tell you how old they were?
At the time, no.
Does anyone know if Carson is still doing this with his fans?
No idea.
Nope, I just have no idea. I haven't talked to him in so long.
It seemed like the only reason they didn't come out sooner is that they were afraid of what could happen due to Carson's influence. This makes me question the motive behind making the Carson allegations public. It also doesn't help that Slimesicle claimed that he filed a tip with the FBI after finding out what Carson did in March of 2020. Yet he didn't stop interacting with him until June. In fact, he was in a video of Carson's from August of 2020. But overall, this situation was handled very poorly. Carson's friends should have planned things out better and came out with more evidence if they wanted to make a solid case. Not like it mattered to the public though. After these allegations surfaced, Carson lost over 300,000 subscribers on his main channel, with all of Twitter going after him for this, which is a problem. It's been almost a year since everything occurred, and we still don't know the full extent of the situation. We don't know how many girls there could have been, how long Carson had been continuing this behavior, or any details other than the first victim. We don't have anything other than word of mouth, from people that we don't even know are trustworthy. You might think that just because they're your favorite YouTubers and haven't done anything wrong to your knowledge that they wouldn't lie or fuck up in situations like this. But you can't form your entire opinion on what they claim happened, and this has been proven time and time and again by past events. Slazzo, a commentary YouTuber, was accused of sexually assaulting his girlfriend, and his friends backed these allegations, only for these same allegations to be proven false once Slazzo made his response video. These guys weren't Discord degenerates that nobody knew either. They were public figures that people had trust in and completely failed. I'm not saying that Carson is like Slazzo. From what we do know, he did sext his 17-year-old while he was 19. This has been confirmed by him and his friends. We do not know if this behavior continued, however, and we are still not sure of the true motive of making these allegations public. My main point is that we shouldn't immediately trust what people say online. If we want serious allegations like this to be confirmed, we should be provided with hard evidence that ties the story together. We shouldn't just take it at face value, which is what most of Twitter did. The last thing I want to talk about is Carson's response, which I found to be quite lacking. On August 25th, Carson released Moving Forward, which was essentially him trying to move past the drama and do his own thing again. And that's good and all, but there were a lot of things that people were confused on that could have been cleared up with a proper response. I understand that he wanted to move on with the drama, and I'm glad he's been able to come back, though with dwindling view counts. But I really do feel like he should have addressed some of the allegations and made things straight. But overall, if you personally want to stop supporting Carson, that is okay. I'm not going to force you at gunpoint to sub to his channel or anything. But people should really take a second to look at the situation, everything that went on, and maybe get a new perspective. Hell, don't even form an opinion off of what I've said. Research the situation for yourself and come to your own conclusions. But for now, that's my take on it. Moving on. For this section of the video, I want to answer a question that I've been asking myself for a while. Can cancel culture kill a channel? And, well, the answer is complicated, as it can go both ways. Some people genuinely can have their careers ruined despite trying to come back time and time again, while some have thrived and recovered from the shit that has been thrown at them. But I'm gonna say that yes, cancel culture can kill a channel. You'll most likely not lose your career from some 15-year-old girl on Twitter calling you out for saying the N-word 10 years ago. But if you were accused of some some serious allegations and people run with it, your career can quickly be ruined, whether you're guilty or not. It is a problem, and people pretending like it isn't a problem are part of why it's an issue. So yeah, sorry for not uploading for 6 months, by the way. I got bored of making videos for a while, with real life shit also getting in the way. I'm back now, however, and a new video should be coming out by late February, though anyone who's watched my content before knows that I'm very inconsistent when it comes to YouTube. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks for sticking with me through that time. Thanks for watching. Follow my Twitter at DeadMemeFrog, and Frog Lives Matter.
Yeah, also, if younger kids fucking listen to you, I'm really scared that they might grow up mentally retarded.